We're having way too much fun.
Hey, oops, time's not up.
I think that's the corner. Right. But the address isn't there. The address is right here. Sandra.
Hey, good afternoon. The Design Review Board number 2 public meeting of June 26, 2008 is called to order. Please refrain from talking amongst yourselves during the meeting, and please turn off or put on vibrate all cell phones and pagers. If you need to talk, please leave the meeting room. Anyone who wishes to speak, including applicants, is asked to fill out one of the speaker cards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff. You will be called to present a case or speak on a specific item as desired. Anyone who wishes to be re-noticed about a project must completely fill out one of the postcards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff to receive notice of subsequent meetings. Current DRB agendas are available by calling our Design Review Board hotline at 818-548-3171 or by visiting our website at www.ci.glendale.ca.us. A handout describing the procedures of the meeting, possible board decisions, and Design Review Board reconsideration and appeals is available at the table by the front door. Please note that appeals must be filed within either 7 or 15 calendar days of the Design Review Board decision date, depending on the type of application. The case planner will announce the length of the appeal period with each case. The chairperson may reorder agenda items at his or her discretion. Roll call. Board Member Eliano.
Here.
Board Member Ellis.
Present.
Board Member Insua.
Here.
Board Member Simonian.
Here.
Board Member Yu.
Here.
Report regarding posting of agenda. The agenda for this meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall at or before 5 p.m. on June 19th, 2008. Oral communications. Discussion is limited to items not a part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 3 minutes. I do not have any speaker cards. Chairperson Simonian, do you have any speaker cards under oral communications?
No, I do not.
All right, so there are no oral communications today. There are no items under the consent calendar, so we go straight to the Design Review Board cases. And the first item is the project located at 2015 Chilton Drive.
Thank you, Julia. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Presented before you is first case number 1, PDR 2008-031-8, located at 2015 Chilton Drive. This is a first-time submittal for final review. Applicant is proposing to add 468 square foot to the existing 960 square foot single-story house. The addition is proposed at the rear of the house to be also a one-story addition to the rear of the existing one-story house. The house sits on a corner lot facing Chilton and Elm Avenue. This will be the front of the house, and that's Elm Avenue. The applicant is proposing to maintain the existing main entrance and the recessed porch at the corner facing both streets. There is currently a detached two-car garage at the rear of the property facing Elm and easy access from Elm Avenue. There's also a 6-foot fence wall right at the property line abutting Elm Avenue, and staff could not find any permits from the history of the records to show if it was done legally. So what staff has been able to communicate with the applicant is if they cannot provide any proof, they will have to move it 6 feet from the property line to meet zoning code. And staff also throughout the report, I'll mention that staff recommends wood fence, but we'll get to that later. The house is the property is located in the El Miradero neighborhood. Most of the homes in this neighborhood are Spanish colonial revival, as well as period homes built during the 30s and the 40s. The homes in this area exhibit a variety of architectural influences. And the addition is fairly modest and small. It is located at the rear. Staff did not anticipate any major impacts to the street level that could be caused by the addition. And staff recommends an approval based on the following comments and a specific condition. Comment number 1. Overall, the site planning of the proposed project remains essentially the same as the existing. The location, size, and configuration of the addition seem to meet the intent of the design guidelines and are compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. Comment number 2. The size, height, mass, and scale are appropriate to the site. The addition fits well within the neighborhood and meets the intent of the design guidelines. Comment number 3. The proposed addition is comprised of materials, colors, and details which appears to be consistent with the existing house. As a result, is compatible with the existing house and the neighborhood. And lastly, there's a condition that staff is proposing to bring the wall to, if no proofs can be provided, to bring the wall to be 6 feet from the property line, to be set back 6 feet to meet the zoning code. And it is recommended by staff that the wall be made of wood material instead of block wall that is today. Applicant is in the audience. If you have any questions, I am also available for questions.
What's that?
Oh, attic access, okay. I didn't see it was in, yeah, okay. I got it.
Also, if I may add, actually just came to my attention, the house currently all around is hip roof, and the addition at the rear, as you can see, there's gable roof introduced at the rear, and this is something staff did discuss with the applicant, and the existing garage has gable roof as well, and applicant wanted to introduce the gable on the house to sort of tie it with the garage, and it is viewed as to be consistent with this site, if not the house by itself, but with the entire site.
And that would be at the rear?
Yes, that would be towards the west.
I see. Do we have any more questions for Mr. Nazaria? Thank you.
So I had a question. You said that the gable is consistent with the garage?
Yes, the applicant has provided information that the garage has a gable roof, and the house currently is hip roof. And the introduction of gable at the rear would sort of be consistent with the existing garage. And that's the only reason they introduced gable there.
Someplace in there? Am I on the wrong side of the house?
Yeah, that's the,
West elevation?
oh, that's the correct side.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's 3 windows listed here. There's 1, 2, 3, but 2 are right next to one another. I'm confused.
All
You see that?
I will let the applicant allow address those comments.
Very good. Well, thank you, Mr. Nazaria.
All right.
Good evening and welcome to Design Review Board 1. I have one card for this case, and it's the designer, Arthur Australian. If you would please approach the podium and state your name for the record.
Arthur Australian, I am designer of that house. If you have any question. And for the fence, I have to show some picture from the Elm Street. All the fences, all the houses has a fence, and it's...
If you would, do you want us to take a look at the pictures?
please.
If you would, hand it to staff and they'll hand it down to us.
Elm Street. And all the houses has a stone with a cover with stucco and some black walls on Elm Street, and if we put a wood wall, I think it will be sort of different from the old street. And all the fences are located on the property lines along the Elm Street. And if we move 6 feet, it's going to be some kind of break from the whole line of the street. If it's possible, we look at the record, we didn't find anything about the fence for the permit, but if it's possible to keep that fence just cover with the stucco to match to house, and for the connect to all street, all the same line with the walls.
These pictures that you provided us with, what addresses do they correspond with?
You see, it's,
And we can't have cross-communication because it's being recorded, but if you could just, from the podium, you could just point it to it, and I'll write down the address for the record.
this one is west of the proposed house. It's on a Chilton Street, but they have a fence along the Elm Street.
Chilton.
This one east side of the Bellevue and Elm.
Elm and what? Bellevue.
And this one is the same on our west side.
Is there anything else you'd like to share with us regarding this case besides the fence?
Besides the face, if you have some question about the house design, I'd like to answer the questions.
I have a question regarding your
Sure.
roof. Why did you decide to use,
Actually, I'll decide to
The
connect the
layout.
garage and the house together, just to make some connection between the garage and house to be in same kind of connect together.
okay, I guess that plus the sort of the cricket that you create in the middle between the two roofs?
Oh, if we do the one hole each is going to be higher than existing. It was going to show us from the street. That's why I decided to do two pitches over there.
Just concerns me because it's not a matter of if it's going to leak, it's going to be when it's going to leak on there, so,
Actually, the cricket, if you do the correct way, there is no leak on the cricket.
yeah, that's what they say. Where's the slope on the cricket going to be?
Excuse me?
The slope? What slope are you going to,
Oh, its minimum slope is 1/4 inch by 1 foot,
but you're not
but
going to do more?
usually doing a little bit more.
Mr. Ray?
I have a couple of questions that, and if you maybe wanted to approach, on the,
Come
there's a-
around.
yeah, come around that way. On the floor plan, it shows a window here, shows a window here, shows a window there. This is the side of the house, am I not mistaken?
That's correct.
So, can you please notice that the windows don't seem to match, so what is your plan on the windows on that side of the house? Which would we be,
So actually, it's this one.
the floor plan?
Floor plan shows this.
Okay, so the elevation is what's not correct, so there's a window here,
Right.
and I don't think that one is here. This one is gone, right? Okay. Okay. That's your air conditioner unit?
Right.
Do you know on the neighbor's house here, what their use is back on that side?
Driveway?
It's a driveway, no, in the house, I know there's a driveway, I'm just kind of wondering. I'm looking at the question, it's
Yeah.
convenient for you, is that putting the noise of your air conditioner? You know, would it be something that you could stick around the back as opposed to on the side, just, I'm speaking from
Right,
personal
yeah.
experience on that.
Setback, well, 7 feet over here,
Right.
it's pretty big.
Right.
Yeah,
And is there a wall currently along there?
Yeah, it's.
The 6-foot concrete wall, okay.
could you consider maybe laying out the kitchen in a different way so that you could put it under one roof? Is it, I mean, you're right, it is going to peek out through the top, but it's
Right.
not, I mean, it's sort of maybe a foot and a half, and if you adjusted the plan a little bit width-wise, you could probably bring that down and match the existing.
One of the things I think we're looking at is from the back, there's a lot of different roofs going on, which you have to then compensate with the cricket. My comment, and what I'm going to show you here, is I'm comfortable with what we've got. Let me just say that. The project is fine, but I think you can save a lot of money, you'll have a better design, and you'll frame it a lot easier if you just do something like this. See how this porch is under a roof?
Right.
If you just extend your roof down to here, you have a little porch in the back, you'll connect your hip. If you're a little higher, doesn't matter, you just extend that little thing, and you have one house that has all these hips and everything tied together. And in the back, you have a little porch, because now you have simplified your roofs framing, so. And I think it'll cost a lot.
I just would like to avoid that each
But it doesn't
from the
matter,
street.
you see them all the time. I mean, the pit, remember, the house is behind you. And
If
anyway,
it's fine with the board.
I think you'll save a lot of money, and there's a lot less
Fine with the
framing.
board, I can do one roof.
I guess what I was thinking was, I mean, because they have sort of the setback here, if we applied that same language here, if they were to take this all the way across, this width is good enough that you'll be able to reach that point
Yeah.
coming in. So, I mean, it would be to simplify this roof here.
Okay.
But, I mean,
If
those
you
are all...
see the kitchen, it's
How long it
about
Yeah, we do.
15 feet, the clear size is 15 feet. If you reduce, the
Right.
kitchen will be narrow and long, which is, this way it's a little bit square for the kitchen, it's more convenient, I believe so.
that's a
Yeah.
preferential thing,
Like
right?
the
And
windows
but I just
that
don't
they
think it's
replaced.
a good trade-off to have a roof like that because you want more of a squarish kitchen.
I don't, that was one of the questions.
Do we have any more questions for the applicant?
I got one last, but it doesn't need to be at the board. I was wondering. I visited the site and I noticed that the rear wall, the stucco was removed and it's plywooded. Is construction started on the project already?
Right, but I stopped them.
You got stopped. Did you get stopped by the city? Was there?
No.
Okay. The windows are currently vinyl?
Right,
Right, okay. And are you proposing to
match the
Match the
existing,
existing
but we
vinyl.
are keeping the frame, wood frame around the windows as existing. The
Right.
existing has wood frame.
Right. Are they energy, the dual pane windows? No?
Yeah.
The existing?
So you're keeping the frame, but you're putting new vinyl windows? You put
No,
new vinyl
on
windows?
existing, there is, right now it's vinyl
You're
windows.
taking them out?
No.
So what are you doing with the new? You're adding new vinyl? Okay.
The new vinyl windows that you're adding, are they going to have the same window treatment as the existing ones with the wood frames around
Right.
them?
Yeah, with the wood frames.
Can I see them?
Well, do we have any more questions for that?
Not for me, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank
That
you.
concludes the public portion. Mr. Ellis, do you want to start today?
Didn't I start on that last one?
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I'd be happy to start. I mean, the project is tucked in the back, I understand, so there's not an impact on the neighbor. I have been noted in the community as an advocate for walls that are meeting the code in Glendale, and I know the applicant maybe doesn't know that there has been a big thing about walls. I would support staff on their recommendation that the walls become conforming. The material they want to make it out of, I would defer back to, but definitely make it conforming. I think I support some of the comments of my colleagues about how to make the roof work a little better. Not crazy about vinyl windows, but I understand the cost involved and that the house has got, the majority of the windows are. I think with some modifications that I would hear from the rest of you, I could probably support it.
Thank you. Mr. Yu?
I agree with you regarding the fence. I mean, if it's an issue that we need to set it back 6 feet, I think we just need to do it. If the fence was done without a permit, I could probably assume that the rebar requirements and the filling of the cells and everything probably were not done per standard. And this picture that I'm looking at now actually shows the wall. There's gaps in it and starting to shift, and so that worries me a little bit too, since it is a high wall, and if it does collapse, if it takes somebody out with it, then that would worry me. There's gaps in there and everything.
little piece right here.
Yeah, so I'm sure that's part of the same wall that...
Yeah, very much. Right.
The roof, I think it could be better done. It looks, plan-wise, I think it probably works to what you were wanting to accomplish, but the roof, it's going to be viewed sort of from the back, especially if the fence gets moved in 6 feet. It just looks like it's been sort of like 3 renovations, generations of it have kind of added to it, and the roof is just kind of mismatched. I think we could do a better roof than that, and I would push for a better roof, a better design of the roof, and not to create a cricket situation where it is going to leak. So those are my comments.
Are you leaning more towards pushing that kitchen in, or you would like to just kind of leave it open?
Either solution, I mean, as long as it's a better roof, I'm okay with.
Simpler roof.
Yeah, simpler, better.
Self-draining.
Working better, yeah, self-draining, without the aid of pumps and whatever.
Mr. Insua?
Again, the project is modest in many ways, but there are some little things I too am supportive of what the city needs to do with respect to the wall. And you're right, it is a wall that looks like it could fall. With the argument with the roof, the existing garage has open eaves and a gable end. Your house has fascia boards, and one of them is a hip, or all of them are hipped except one of them. I don't see how the thinking that I'm going to keep it to mirror the garage is working this thing. The house has its own roof angles and language. I think you should make it a hip roof, and as you show here in the drawings, continue the fascia boards. I would also agree that in the back, there's a lot of different angles with the roof, and I would say the roof needs to be simplified. I think that we can mimic a little bit of what we've done here on the back, tie all those hips together, and it'll be easier, faster, and you won't ever have a problem with potentially the flooding out of that cricket area. So I would like to make a recommendation that that this is a better way to frame it.
So the roof, redesign of the roof would be a condition.
To one roof area. And again, this is uninhabited area right underneath this little area. And you got a little area underneath it. Just nothing like
Nice
that.
little porch.
Yep. So,
Mr. Aliano?
I'm sketching too. I agree with the comments. I think there's a few ways to do that roof a little bit, the idea of the 2 gables creating a valley there. It's not very practical, but it also doesn't seem to be very engaging to the existing structure. So I would support something like Mr. Insua's sketch, where you go, well, either one I think will work. You span the whole thing and you create a little balcony or a little covered patio back there, or something like this where you can continue the same frame, but you're basically creating a valley there. And you still have a hip there, so you're still jogging and still get some trellis work, whatever you like to do there. So either one I would be happy to support. I'm too bad about the vinyl windows, but you're not making a big change to the house. And I would say in this particular instance, I would just accept that because you are mostly impacting the rear anyway. So with that, I'm okay with supporting the project.
Well, thank you. I concur with my colleagues as well. It's a simple project, not too much to it. And I think with the redesign of the roof, we've alleviated some of the issues that might pop up. I suggest maybe we hand the urban designer a copy of these 2 sketches, and that could go part of the file as option 1 and option 2, as Mr. Aliano has indicated.
Can I get these to the planner?
Why don't you autograph it for them?
Sure.
And so that way, we'll be able to follow through, the case planner will be able to follow through with the applicant and alleviate the roof issue. And I think overall, the board seems to agree that the wall should move. And so that's what I'm hearing from everybody as well, that relocating the wall within the property line is 6 feet from the property line is a good idea as well. So I could support the project, and I could let's go ahead and entertain a motion with some conditions and move on to the next case.
Do you want me to go over the conditions?
Yes.
All right. One of the conditions that was proposed by staff was to move the wall to 6 feet from the property line, and the board seems to agree with that condition. And the second condition that seemed to be unanimous throughout the board, everybody seems to agree on, is that the roof should be simpler and made it to hip roof. And I have been handed 2 options, and I will present this to the applicant, and we'll go over hopefully we'll pick one and be able to incorporate it into the design. And there were overall comments that we had included in our sort of draft record of decision. And did you want me to read those again for you? And
Were they mentioned?
they were mentioned
they
through
echoed as well?
during the presentation. They were mentioned, yes.
Well, I think what we've heard so far is two conditions. One was the roof, and the other one was the fence.
Yes, and there were some overall comments about the overall consistency of the design with the house and the neighborhood that was mentioned by me during the presentation. And that will go into the record of decision.
Oh, I see. Go ahead.
Did you want me to read it for you again?
Yeah, sure.
All right, one was that the overall, the site planning of the proposed project remains essentially the same as the existing. The location, size, and configuration of the additions seem to meet the intent of the design guidelines and are compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. That was one. Second, the size, height, mass, and scale are appropriate to the site. The addition fits well with the neighborhood and meets the intent of the design guidelines. That was the second. And the third was the proposed addition is comprised of materials, colors, and details which appear to be consistent with the existing house and as a result are compatible with the house and the neighborhood. And following this will be the two conditions.
Excellent.
Very good.
If I may, in the body of the report, there was a recommendation that when the fence or wall, site wall, is moved, it be modified to a different material. Can we get a sense of the board as to whether that should be included in the conditions?
I frankly I'm not comfortable indicating what the material should be. They are stepping back. If you do step back 6 feet, it's really up to them as to what material they would like to integrate into the design. It could be wood, it could be block, it could be something more of organic shaped that would integrate perhaps some landscaping into it. So I don't want to go so far as to dictate that. That's my personal opinion on the matter.
There are certainly some prohibitions in the fence. The chain link is not prohibited, that type of
Right,
fence.
can we leave that up to the
But leave that up to
urban
staff.
designer too, to coordinate with them to make sure whatever
So
is
we
proposed-
can use that as a consideration.
Yeah, but it needs to be adequate to your judgment.
Great. Thank you.
I would like to throw in as a consideration moving of the mechanical, the evaporator to the street side possibly. It just seems when you're on a corner house, not to, throw it at your neighbor even though there is a block wall and a driveway. I just, if you have that ability, it would be worth to at least look at a consideration to relocate the mechanical.
On the other side, on the corner.
Yeah, especially if the wall's coming in, it seems like they're going to have a little less usable space in that space, that they might consider that.
Is it existing or new?
Well, it's marked, I don't know if it's existing. It's not existing because it's next to the...
If it's new,
That's in unit?
I would...
Yeah, right. Well, it seems like it's located where the new construction is. And on Sunday, when it was 110 degrees out, when I was looking at this house, all the windows were open, so they weren't running the air conditioner. I didn't hear it, so...
Okay, well, could be a consideration.
Yeah, right, as a consideration, not as a, but, the considerate. If it's not...
If it's a new...
We'll put it in the
system,
record
new
of decision as a
system,
condition.
then
Yeah,
they
right.
could
Consideration.
consider moving it on the street
Right.
side, but if it's existing, it might be a hardship.
I understand that, yeah, I would not ask them to move an existing one.
Called out as a water heater, so I don't know.
Isn't that next to it, that thing? That's not the water heater.
that's the water heater.
No, that one's the water heater, that one. 3.
Maybe that is the water
Right.
heater.
Oh, maybe it is.
Go.
You're right.
That's the condenser unit.
Well, does someone want to entertain a motion?
I'll move acceptance of the project with the conditions and considerations as discussed.
Is there a second? All right, we have a motion made by Mr. Ellis to approve with conditions and considerations, and it was seconded by Mr. Aliano. This will be a roll call. Mr. Aliano?
Yes?
Mr. Yu?
Yes.
Mr. Insua?
Yes.
Mr. Ellis?
Yes.
Chairman Simonian?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Wonderful. Our next case is 1-PDR-2008-025-A, 1133 Cordova Avenue. And it's Mr. Nazarian again.
Yes.
2 in a row.
Yes. Hi, thank you, Mr. Chair. Proposed on, next project is 1-PDR 2008-025-8, located at 1133 Cordova Avenue. applicant is proposing a 807 square foot of two-story addition at the rear of the existing one-story house that is at 1,539 square foot. Currently, there is a single story at the front that was built in 1927 on a lot of 6,500 square foot. The overall 807 square foot addition will be split into first and second story. First story will be added 401 square foot, and the second story will be added 406 square foot. Also, with this application, previously the applicant has been able to obtain variance and parking reduction permit. Variance was granted on April 11 of 2008. I have copies of those letters. If the board wants, I can provide those. It was approved to be able to maintain the existing 4-foot setback while adding a second story or a two-story addition to the house, because the code says that if it's a two-story house, the entire house has to be set back at least 5 feet. But currently the house is at 4 feet, and they were granted the variance to maintain it at 4. And the parking reduction was granted to maintain the existing garage. However, one of the conditions with the parking reduction was to extend the garage by 1.5 feet to be able to provide a 16-foot wide door. Applicant has included that as part of the scope of this addition to the house. The property is located in the Rossmoy neighborhood. Most of the homes in this neighborhood were built in the 20s through the 60s. The guidelines note that the architectural style in this neighborhood is predominantly Spanish colonial revival. This is reflected in the existing building and the proposal. Let's see, I will quickly go over the staff's recommendations and comments. Staff does recommend an approval of the project as proposed based on the following comments. Overall, the two-story addition at the rear is well placed and modest intervention while maintaining the overall site plan configuration of the existing site consistent with the existing neighborhood. The two-story addition is at the rear and appears to have little impact from the street or surrounding properties. The overall size, height, mass, and scale is appropriate to the site, fits well with the neighborhood, and meets the intent of the design guidelines. And lastly, the proposed design is comprised of high-quality materials, colors, and detail which appear to provide consistency with the Spanish colonial style and is consistent with the existing colors and materials. That concludes my brief presentation, and if you have questions, I am available. Applicant is in the audience as well.
Question? Did this is between an existing garage, a detached garage, and the
what? I'm sorry.
The distance between the existing detached garage and the livable house space? Isn't there a minimum distance?
I believe building code requires minimum of 5 feet from eave to eave.
5?
And that's a building code requirement, not a zoning. I can be corrected if I'm wrong.
It's a zoning code requirement, 5 feet eave to eave.
Is this zoning code as well?
What about the backing radius, the turning radius? Is there some,
The turning radius would have to comply with the parking code requirement of a 25-foot turnaround area.
Mr. Nazarian, in our packages that were presented to us, the rear trellis
Yes.
happens to have been modified.
Yes. That is after meeting with staff, we recommended some modification to the rear, especially the trellis as well. And applicant has provided new elevation drawings that shows the new proposal, new perspective drawing. However, it's not reflected in the elevation drawings, but the applicant is proposing wood columns instead of stucco columns, which are shown on the
So those
elevation.
beams are going to go underneath the pop-out
Yes.
of that master bedroom.
And applicant has shown great flexibility as to how it could be done, and I'm pretty sure applicant is open to recommendations, because when we were discussing this, applicant was happy to do whatever we were asking.
Out of curiosity, the parking reduction, which the variance was granted for, what was the reasoning behind it? Because it's a one-car garage, or?
Because the size of the garage didn't meet code, and the door was very small.
I see.
So the size is still under standard, but the door applicant has extended the garage by 1.5 feet to be able to have at least a 16-foot wide door.
And so
the turning radius and the adjacency of the uses, the adjacency of the buildings were probably discussed at that point in time. And it's the same plan as was presented in the variance back then?
Yes. Not to this level of detail, but yes.
The concept was the same. Do we have any more questions for Mr. Nazari?
I do have two perspective drawings viewed from the street, and I've written a little 6 and a 10, and these, because we did discuss this with the applicant, that the perspective looked a little deceiving because the second story didn't seem to be high enough. But as it turns out, the property slopes down by about, I think, 3 feet, There's a 3 feet elevation difference, so the second story at the rear actually is not as high from this page as it should have been if it was a flat lot. So the difference between them is about 3 feet and 3 inches. And the applicant has also provided another perspective at 10 feet level to show the second story, but obviously I don't know if there's anybody 10 foot tall walking around.
Thank you very much.
Right.
Don't have a card from you, but you could just fill one out afterwards and hand it to staff.
I give it to Rosanna before the meeting. I was the first one, so
He was the first one. Who do you recall that?
Well, we all know you, so just state your name for the record and then give us one later.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Franco Noravian, 409 West Broadway, Glendale, California, 91204. I'm the architect for the project. I think Gevorg already gave a good presentation. The most important thing to realize about this project is that the lot slopes to the back. So really, in the back, you have a 1.5-story house already. It's about 4 feet, not 4 feet. So when we put our 2-story addition in the back, the peak of the roof is actually only 3 foot 3 inches higher than the current house. And I've tried to do everything I can to keep it to a low profile. We didn't want to have a flat roof on the addition, even though most of the house has a flat roof. So we're matching a little bit of pitch roof that there is in the front of the house in terms of roofing material and stucco. Obviously, we're matching the same color and texture, and windows will be all wood. And in fact, the one big window that's in the front, our intention is to match that exactly. And replicate it in the back. That's about all I have to say. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Is there a reason why you didn't make the second story a little wider so you wouldn't have the flat roofs on the 2 sides?
The only reason is because I was trying to keep it to a low profile, so the wider it gets, a little bit taller it will be. And since we applied for the variance, since the main house only had 4 feet, my proposed addition in the back is 5 feet on the first floor, but on the second floor it's set back even more.
Yep.
So I can, if you want to make that a condition, we would be happy to make it bigger.
So you just applied it on both sides? And
Yes, to make it a little bit smaller and farther away from the property lines.
So what would happen there? Would you just drain that little area into it and then?
Yeah, the whole house, like I said, has a flat roof, so having a little bit of flat roof there, I don't think it's going to be a problem. Because we have a parapet, so I don't have to even do a quarter. I can do 2 and 12. You won't see it behind the parapet, and just put a scupper there and drain it.
I have a question for you. Is the water heater currently on the side of the house there?
It's on the driveway side.
On the driveway side, right up below the window?
Yes.
It's an existing. Yeah, that seemed a little odd when I saw that on the plan, that the water heater was below the window. It's not that's where you're proposing to relocate it to.
No.
Is that right?
Oh, that's right. Okay. We're exactly, yeah. I'm sorry.
Because it seemed like an odd place to put the water heater under a window. Just in kind of, I can see why you'd want to nook it there, but it just seems with the water heater under the window, what do you do with the flue?
Well, we can move it, or we can go with a tankless, or...
Yeah, I don't know, or, what, that jumped out at me, thinking of having just had to turn on my gas water heater last night, that there's a flue and some plumbing and all of that.
I actually have two questions. I had the same question as Mr. Insua did on that flat portion, and I'm wondering, did you consider at all just simply putting in a roof here and angling it, so in a way you basically still step back, you break up the massing of this wall, and you simply drain the water from this plane down this 45-degree angle? That's something that...
I'll be happy to do that. That sounds like a good idea.
It's a great way of alleviating that flat area, and it actually would break up the massing, and it would be much more efficient from the sides. And you've broken up the roof line, and you've probably done it for the windows.
Well, two reasons. The existing house does that. The front gable, if you look at the pictures, it breaks the gable. So I was just trying to repeat it.
I see. Right.
It's more dramatic on the front, though, because of the...
Yeah, because of the windows and stuff.
I mean, we don't have to, because, as Gevorg said, the back, you really can't see the back when you're looking at it from the front. So if we want to simplify it and just make it a regular pitch, I'm okay with that.
Is there a little window there on that back? Is that an attic space, or is that...
Window? It would be just an attic space. It's only there...
to break up that.
Exactly.
Yeah, right. That's why I was wondering if, because it looked a little dinky, but...
It's a niche for the statue.
Yeah. Well, it's actually, in that picture, doesn't even look like it's... And I guess maybe that's because of the roof break. Now I'm looking at it, it's not centered in that. Is that just
centered on the ridge?
That window is not centered, though.
No, it's not centered on the ridge. Maybe it's just in the drawing. You want it centered on the ridge. Does it look...
It's a little bit off.
When you did it by hand, it's on. When you do it on the computer, right?
Yeah, it should be centered on.
Centered on the ridge, yeah, right, okay.
Well, do we have any more questions for the architect? Thank you.
I had actually one
more.
Is there, how that second story kind of protrudes and it hangs, overhangs? Right here.
And we've reduced that, and after meeting with staff, what did we reduce it to? Like 12 inches? The setback was reduced. I brought the lower floor out more and pushed the upper floor in.
So is it almost like this now?
I think it's 12-inch or 18-inch overhang. I'm not positive, but something like that. Definitely not the 3 feet.
But you're bringing, these guys are going underneath.
Yeah, the trellis goes underneath. Yeah.
Doesn't bother me now as much, because before it was just too much.
Yeah. I thought that was good observation.
If you're bringing the lattice work underneath to create like a corbel effect, or not a corbel, like a beam, it's probably okay. All right.
All right, I got one last question for you while I got you here. In the master bedroom and the master bath,
yes,
did you consider centering that door into the bathroom so it's not maybe so tight under the water closet? I mean, I have a bathroom like that, and it's just I can tell you,
it's not good.
Nah, you know.
We can.
I mean, again, it's. I hate to walk inside somebody's house, but I can tell you, if you don't have one now, you won't like it when you get it.
All right, well, we can move that.
I mean, I'd say, and again, I would defer back to the owner to what they want to do, but personal experience. I got another one of those in this coming up project.
Yeah,
That really bothers you.
Look at this. You're going to straighten this out, right?
Yeah, sure. We'll be happy to.
It will look better.
That's true.
Did I?
Why would you put expensive to fix It's away from the door.
What reason?
Can you extend the trellis another bay, in other words, try to put another one, not at the corner, but close to the corner?
Sure.
I mean, I'll leave it up to you. I think you have to make that judgment, but we use another joist here.
Oh, I got you. Yeah.
That way it's not so much gap between the corner and the
Okay.
woodwork.
Okay. Do we have any more questions from Mr. Norabian? Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker on this case is Donachata Dolly.
Oh, you've embarrassed her.
No.
Hi, Dan. Donica Daly. I'm the owner at 1133 Cordova Avenue. I just came to fill out one of the forms just in case you had any questions that we could answer.
Do we have any questions for the
Are
owner?
you a next-door neighbor?
No, I'm
The owner. The owner.
The owner, I'm sorry.
Nice looking house.
Okay.
No, thank you. Yeah, it's great. I love it.
The windows are going to be matching. What is there right now? Good answer.
He's been here before.
He's been beaten down enough.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the next speaker is Angie Dolly.
Oh, I see. It's the names.
Angie Daly, 1133 Cordova Avenue. I'm the owner. And same thing, if you had any questions, that's why we filled out the form.
Very good. I don't think we do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, the public portion is now closed. Mr. Aliano, do you want to start on this one?
I think we made enough comments. I'd like to move for approval unless the
I'm just going to, no, okay. I just had a couple comments.
Go ahead, make your comments.
Okay. The back addition still, it's great, and I'm going to be supporting it. It's a great job, and Frank always does really great work. The back still looks a little bit like a piggyback that's been put on the house. I think that certain things can be done to that lower roof, and I apologize. My kids say, I don't want to tell you what to do, so forgive me, but if you see over here in the, this is what I would do. That doesn't mean what you do. There's a lot of great ideas up here. But if you see that right here, there's like a little architectural fun going on here.
Above the driveway.
Above the driveway. How about if you brought that little architectural fun to here and to the sides, you now tie it in and you eliminate a lot of this horizontal roof. Just a thought. You're very, this gentleman does great work but I think a little bit can be done there and it won't cost a penny, but just try to tie some of those little others. Other than that, maybe a couple pennies. I have extra tile at my home. Come by anytime.
I'd like to move with incorporating those comments. If everybody's okay, move for approval with comments by Mr. Insua.
Second.
All right. Did you want me to go over the conditions and comments for you?
I don't think so. I think we know what
It's ready to move.
I think you should,
All right.
though.
We have a motion by Mr. Aliano and a second by Mr. Insua, right?
I think maybe you want to read those in anyway, just for the record.
What we're trying to do is go through those.
Well, the first one was made by Mr. Simonian, and I actually had a question on that one where you said to add a roof on the side. Is that the same side you're talking about, what Mr. Insua just mentioned?
It is, so I think
Decoration.
we went with the second option, which
Second
was
option.
just mimicking.
And that would be on both sides, I assume?
Correct.
Of the elevation.
Mimicking the ornamental feature above the driveway entrance.
So can we just leave it up to them to decide which way they go with it, or?
Actually, that would be nice, maybe give them the opportunity to pick one or the other.
Okay. All right. The second one was to make the slope of the roof simpler slope instead of the off-center sort of one. And also consider adding another joist to the trellis to make it extend to the corner. That was more like a consideration.
I wouldn't even put that in there. You hear.
I'll put that in. Okay. All right, now that we have covered, did I miss anything?
The water heater, is that just an obvious one, I guess, or just a...
Do something about the water heater.
Do you want to make a consideration for...
Consideration, just, location of the water heater.
So it's not...
It's moving anyway, there...
Because you could see it from the street, so you might want to...
Right.
Sort of hiding away.
I was concerned with the window right above it, personally, but...
Okay.
Oh, you're right, though.
So consider moving the water heater from the view of the street.
Right, okay.
And we had a motion made by Mr. Aliano to approve with the conditions, and second by Mr. Insua. This will be a roll call. Mr. Aliano?
Yes.
Mr. Yu?
Yes.
Mr. Insua?
Yes.
Mr. Ellis?
Yes.
Chairman Simonian?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. Thank you.
There's also the matter of, other than the conditions, there's the record of decision.
Oh, God, you gotta read it all.
Yes.
If you approve it, then it's in the staff report. We
That
can
was
simply include
already
it.
mentioned during the presentation. If you want, I can read it through.
I'm going to reopen the 1-PDR-2008-025-A, and if you would just go over
Over the
section.
All right. So first one was Overall, the two-story addition at the rear is well-placed and modest intervention while maintaining the overall site plan configuration of the existing site consistent with the existing neighborhood. Second, the two-story addition is at the rear and appears to have little impact from the street or surrounding properties. The overall size, height, mass, and scale is appropriate to the site, fits well with the neighborhood, and meets the intent of the design guidelines. And third one, the proposed design is comprised of high-quality materials, colors, and details which appear to provide consistency with the Spanish colonial style and is consistent with the existing colors and materials. That will go in the record of decision along with the comments and conditions made by the board.
Excellent.
Thank you. All right. Our next case is 1-PDR-2008-009-A, 2061 Montecito Drive. And Mr. Baxter is our case planner. So should we take a 2-minute recess?
Yeah.
That would be a good idea.
Yeah, we'll take a 2-minute recess while we find Mr. Baxter.
We must be back because they don't say recess anymore.
We are back.
Now we're back.
We're back. Welcome back to Design Review Board 1. Our last case is 1-PDR-2007-134-A, and the address is 1000 Sandringham Drive.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the Design Review Board. This last item is case number 1-PDR 2007-134A. Its location is at 1000 Sandringham Drive. The property is zoned R1 Off-Floor Area District 2, which designates this property as a hillside property. The applicant is proposing to construct a brand-new house on a vacant undeveloped lot. The house will be two-story with a 3-car garage and will contain approximately 5,113 square feet of livable area. About 3,000 will be on the ground floor and the rest will be on the second level. The lot, as you can see, is irregular in shape. It has approximately 31,290 square feet and is located at the terminus of Balmoral Drive and Sandringham Drive. Like most hillside property, the majority of the homes here tend to be large, built in 2- and 3-story high. There's no predominant architectural style in this particular neighborhood. However, most homes mimic the classical style. This property is located in the Verdugo Woodlands South neighborhood, which, as I stated earlier, is a hillside neighborhood. The proposed residence will be built in the flattest area. As you can see on the site plan, this area is relatively flat, and then the lot slopes down towards the back and towards the eastern portion of the property. And this area here, however, it's not part of the property, but that property slopes upward. The properties along the same street on this side of the street anyway tends to have a flat pad, and then towards the back it slopes to the rear, particularly the next door neighbor to the west of the proposed project. It has a similar type of topography towards the rear of the property. The site planning in this case, due to the lot's shape and topography, appears to be appropriate. The house will be placed in the flattest area, and due to this location of the location of the proposed house, it will not be readily visible from the street. If one's traveling from Balmoral, it would be to the side, and if one traveling Sandringham Drive, which is a really short street, it will be tucked to the side of the lot. The applicant is calling this architecture French provincial, or has the French influence to the overall look of the house. There's no preferred architectural style in this neighborhood. As stated earlier, the important criteria to consider actually in a hillside property is our mass and scale. And this project appears to successfully address that. As you can see on the site plan, there's a lot of movements in the wall, and the fenestration is well articulated. However, if you look at all the elevation, the west elevation seems to be the quietest in terms of the detailing compared to the other three. This elevation is actually closest to the neighbor to the west, which is this side here, and there's an existing concrete block wall separating the two properties. Again, it's for a home of this particular style, detailing and the use of high quality are critical. And in this project, the applicant is proposing to use fiberglass windows, foam coins, as you can see, on the corners of the building, and foam moldings. The garage door, however, will be a wooden garage door. And there's some combination of variety of materials. There's going to be the slate roof, and there's some copper roof added to give that variation in the use of material. Just to look at some numbers, range of properties within 300 linear feet of the subject property. The range is 9,200 for lot size. It's 9,271 square feet to 2,908 square feet. The subject property has 31,290 square feet. Setback ranges from 8 feet to 15 feet. The approximate setback for the proposed project is 30 feet. And house size, 1,965 to 5,515. The proposed project is 5,113 square feet. Floor area ratio, 0.18 through 0.26. The proposed project is 0.17. And most home in this general area tends to be in 2 or 3 stories. The proposed project is 2-story. So the numbers appear to be consistent, and the lot size, the subject property is actually larger than most property in this area. So in that regards, the project appears to be consistent with the neighborhood. Just to go over, summarize some of the main areas when reviewing and processing this project. There's a site planning. The site planning of the project appears appropriate due to the overall topography of the lot. The proposed single-family residence will be located on the flattest area, which will place the house closest to the neighbor to the west. There are no other residences within close proximity to the north, south, or east of the subject property. Due to the shape of the lot and the placement of the house, the proposed house would not be readily visible to the public. Regarding mass and scale, the building is well situated on the lot. The house will be located again on the northwest portion of the lot, while the new house will be one of the larger homes in this neighborhood. Mass and scale appears to have been appropriately addressed. Building design and detailing. The applicant was successful in achieving mass and scale that are consistent with other homes in the neighborhood. However, the general feel and design of the project does not reflect the design themes that already exist in this neighborhood. And that concludes staff presentation. Any question, I'm available to answer them.
What is the material of the railings? It seems to be some sort of a glass. Is that
Yes, glass
what it is?
encased with wrought iron. And the designer, Mr. Alan Applicant, is here to discuss the project further if you'd like.
And so this portion is mainly flat. The portion that the building sits on is predominantly flat.
Pretty much this area. There may be some filling towards the edges. I also like to mention that the rest of the lot towards the rear will be ungraded open space, and it will not be touched as part of this project. So most of the landscaping will be done around the perimeter of the house, and that will include patios and a pool and an infinity pool and covered patios, as well as open patios. This garage is also a 3-car garage. This is a tandem garage. The third space is allowed to be tandem in this case.
Question for you, I don't know if you can answer on the plot map. It said future street through there.
I can explain on that.
Can you explain that when
Yeah.
we get to that? Okay, thanks.
Do you have any more questions for staff? Thank you. We only have one card this evening for this project, and it's
Good evening.
Alan Malakian, the designer for the project.
Good evening, and finally, we can talk about this. The name is Alan Malikian. My office is 919 West Glen Oaks Boulevard. We're the designer of this project, and I'm just hoping that every one of you guys had an opportunity to go to the site. Because when I was approached to do this project, my first instinct was, we're going to have a tough time. I don't think I can do it. And he convinced me to go to the site and look at the site, experience where he's envisioning where he wants to build it. And it's sure enough that, I was convinced by looking at the actual location, what he wanted to do and what we were going to accomplish. As far as the property, there's a history behind the property itself. There's a survey, and I don't know if the survey covers that, but on the vicinity map, and I brought in this overall aerial view.
Yes, we got that.
It was a elongated, the parcel itself went all the way
back towards the street get my orientation, the Sundringham as it comes down to Sunshine Drive. So that parcel actually went all the way down there, and it was cutting exactly that whole thing.
Okay.
And part of the tract map subdivision process, and there was a future road that it was planned that the road would continue, and but that was abandoned many years ago. And so the owner of the property, they went through a tract map. They came with the deal that they would cut the property and pretty much donate the northern portion, or the northern portion of the parcel as an open space, and a certain portion would be developable site. And that's what he ended up having and selling to my current owner. So that's what we ended up having, and that's the cutout that you see is the shape that was the result of the negotiation and the tract map process. So that's where we are. We do have a topo map, and maybe that would answer Mr. Young's question about, I don't know if Mr. Simonian asked the question. The flattest part of the parcel is where we actually put the building in. Pretty much on the south, on the west, and on the north are pretty much unbuildable. It's open space. There's absolutely no building can be built there. It's just an open space, and no impact would be whatsoever to any building or anything. The building immediate to the east of the parcel, or I'm sorry, to the west of the parcel, that would be the only house that is impacted, if so, with this building. And what we try to do is maintain the setback, which is the required 10-foot minimum, and we did some ins and outs of the building, and also we tried to set the building back from the end of the adjacent building, so it doesn't affect, or it doesn't come forward and have a major impact on their presence, on its presence. As far as the building itself, as I don't know, some of you guys are aware of, this is probably the first time that I'm giving a shot on this architectural style, and it's a fairly tough, I have to say, research, and a lot of time had been spent and researching and Googling a lot of photographs and details and how to incorporate things, and all the input from the program part of it, as the owner would come in with his own requirements, very specific requirements, certain things interior-wise, and we had to manage to get the details that it was true to its style and architecture that he preferred to have, and our responsibility was to research and try to put this thing together. The grading is almost non-existent, if not very minimal. There's an actual fire access road that is abandoned again, and that would come around, and part of the retaining walls that we're proposing for the deck will be backfilled with the excavation that we have, a little bit of a hump that we have where the actual building is. So we've actually a lot of work there, but there's hardly as part of the amount of grading itself. So it's a balance, absolutely a balance earthwork, and there's hardly any impact to anywhere beyond where the deck boundaries are. Other than that, if you have any other questions, I don't know if I missed anything. And I brought in those photographs, and kind of, I don't know, again, if you guys had a chance to drive around the neighborhood and kind of see what's out there, and kind of give you an example of some of the homes there. And I think it fits in. I think it's scaled and size-wise, massing-wise, and especially the location that it's being placed in. I think it fills properly. I don't think it will have any significant impact to immediate neighbors. I also was given a set of letters. I don't know if you guys want to, the owner went around the neighborhood and kind of gave some letters of what, if they were approving the project, and we have them here, so I want to hand that over. That was dropped off in my office yesterday, so that's why I wasn't able to bring that over. So most of the, anyone that was available and willing to sit down and listen to him, and they actually dropped off the plans with them rather than sit there and go through them, so they had the chance to review the plans, and if there was any questions, he made sure that I was available for them. No one contacted me or any calls.
Great. Do we have any questions for the applicant and the designer?
I do. I'll defer.
I had a question.
Please start with me.
Is that a Lamborghini in the garage?
It better be.
We were wondering if it's a Lamborghini or a Ferrari.
We're having a debate.
So nowadays, I think I should just change it, downgrade it to some hybrid cars.
Chevy Volt.
That's the in thing, I guess.
Not the 12-cylinder beast.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
The open space around it, is that privately held?
I don't.
You know what's
Privately held. I don't think it's.
Because it seemed like that was a fire access at one point to that.
There's a fire access.
That
It's not. If it is, there's no. It's. I believe it would be deadlocked. Or there is a project that is being proposed further down on the other side of the hill, but I don't know if that's still.
Right.
But immediately to the east of the parcel, that is not privately owned.
Immediately, so when you're standing on their property, I'm looking downtown to the left, that area, that valley in there
That valley
is privately held. I mean,
It's not privately held.
Oh, it's not privately?
No, it's public.
It's public property.
Oh, yeah.
And the piece of property that was deeded up, and that's another building lot?
That became a public.
That was done,
open
yeah.
space, yes.
Because I noticed that when I did visit the site, it looked like there had been some type of irrigation system on all that at one time that's no longer...
It's city-owned.
It's
property,
right.
yeah.
Okay, like the water tank was sitting right there on your client's property? Is that what that base, that foundation was?
Yeah.
I'm sure the neighbors would be happy to have something other there than a place to throw beer cans.
Yeah, that's true.
Because there were a lot of those, right?
Just have a couple questions.
Sure.
The neighbor to the west.
Right.
I was trying to look at the survey. Is there like a 7-foot difference?
There is a, I don't think it's 7, I think it's about 5 or 6 foot difference.
5 or 6 foot difference.
Yeah.
Is there a retaining wall that's proposed there, or is it one already?
There is there's actually going to be a small retaining wall there, and we're going to drop that, and there's going to be landscaping, and there's going to be a walkway right adjacent to it. It's shown on the site plan. But there is going to be a fence wall, I believe that's there.
On top of the retaining wall?
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that west face and how Rather was also alluding to the blankness of the...
Yeah, maybe I should go down the conditions that was brought, and that's part of the, and maybe I can kind of talk about some of these items. No, we met with the staff several times during the process, and it's been a close collaboration of all, modifying, making different changes and so forth. And these conditions were some of them that were we just said, we'll just leave it off for now, and then we'll agree when we're here. As far as I'll just go down the list. Concrete coins and window frames and sills and borders instead of foam. This is the product that the owner dropped off, and this is what he wants to use. And so he brought the sample over, and he wanted to see if the board would agree with him. If not, then if the concrete coins are the direction that we want to go, then that would be fine. The buttons on all the windows and doors three-dimensionally, I don't see a problem with that. Portion of the lower level of the west elevation appears to be inconsistent with the rest of the house. Okay, so the west elevation, I think there's certain details that were missing, like as far as the entry doors. But other than that, I don't think the staff is proposing, they want us to open up new windows. I think it's just the detail around the doors that I think, and I have no problem with that. I think it's something we probably missed or something we just overlooked on that, so I have no problem with that one. Wood windows, it was actually originally, we started off with the fiberglass, and vinyl, and it was a pretty tough battle, and we convinced them to go to fiberglass, and so if wood is the direction that we want to take this, I don't think he'll have a problem. He'll have a problem, but I don't think he'll have any choice. Fiberglass, I think it's a better quality. You get the same characteristics of the vinyl, but you do have the option of painting and bring it to the level of whatever the painted finish of metal or wood you will get. So, but it would be a fiberglass. Retaining walls to be constructed as decorative materials. I don't see a problem with that, and that's not a problem. The middle column supporting the rear balcony on the south tower should be centered or eliminated if possible. We can center it. It's just a matter of, it's probably more of a drafting thing than anything, so it's just, that's not a problem. The French doors on the lower level of south elevation should be centered, not a problem. The door opening on the second level of the west elevation lacks the details found on the, again, the same goes to the west elevation, again, same comment. We need to put those details around the doors. It's probably something we missed again. The site plan shows wall fences and gates to be constructed. We're not going to go through a variance for that, so we will remove that and push that back. That's something that will be taken care of, so we won't have anything within the front setback. And overall quality, I think we are meeting that, but if there's any we are using slate roof, we are using certain areas copper roof. The details, I think we've gone through extensively on the details, but if there's any upgrade that you guys feel that we should do, by all means, if you can address that, we'll take care of that. So I don't know if that answers your question and the rest of the questions. So,
just one quick one. Is there any access as you go down to the driveway to get up into the front area? There is none, right?
The only access you will have as you go down
is to the side of the...
you have to go into the garage and go up, or if you decide to get into the house, you need to take the back up and go back. One of the things that we had modified during the whole design, and that's one thing that I'm glad that he agreed on, was that the driveway, originally felt really deep, and just the backing up was I felt that it would be very difficult to back up that long driveway. I actually managed to put this niche under the deck area so they can actually do a hammerhead turn there, so I think he's happy with that one. And we do have a walkway on the other side also for the trash and the recycler to roll out.
Is that the hammerhead shown up in this drawing up here?
Yeah.
Oh, I got it. That's under the...
That's under the,
guy.
Concrete is...
Yeah.
Guy. Oh, okay, so it's not the one I was looking at. That's a different drawing then. Okay. I got a quick question for you. It appears the trash is off to the side against the neighbors right there. How do you get those to the street? If there's no connection?
If you look at the site plan,
give me a page.
A1.0.
A1.0, okay.
You see that hatched?
Right.
That's actually a walkway, and between the walkway and the neighbor's property, there's actually a landscape planner.
Right.
So as they come out of if you go back to A2.0, you'll see where the kitchen is.
Right.
And as they come out, the trash is right there.
Right.
They can just roll it down.
And so, because I didn't see how it connected with the street, but that's where you're saying, right along the side of the driveway there, and then to turn down.
Right.
Okay. My other thing I'm on today, won't talk water closets in this one. The air conditioning.
Okay, I know you guys were going to talk about that. Well,
Water closets?
Okay, so here's the thing. We did talk about I got into the air conditioning with the owner, and he has come across this unique way of addressing the fan coil, the fan units that sit outside. Apparently, there's this system that they actually bore a hole about 12-inch round, and they go down about 40 to 50 foot deep, and they actually spin the coil inside that hole, and they fill it with concrete, and with the pump, it actually pumps and it circulates that, and that's what he wants to use on that. So that's what we don't have.
Using the earth to cool off
using the earth. He's really big in using photovoltaic cells, and that's something that we're going to look into later on. But that's one of the products that he's researching on. If that doesn't happen, then I think we're just going to go back, and we do have several places that we can go ahead and put but that's what our goal is, to be able to put that in. And if we do put any kind of a fan, we are going to put it on the east side rather than on the west side. Yes.
Ed, can I ask this question? Was there any other consideration given to a home style on this property, or was this kind of what the owner was looking for?
Honestly, no. From day one, this is exactly what he wanted. And I was not able to convince him to go into any other style. No.
Something that would fit the landscape? Okay.
I have to say he's a great client, so.
No, I'm sure.
I think the point is to stand out, not to blend into.
Right. But we'll get to that later. One last question. That little 5'9" storage space.
Yes.
Which is not counted in the floor area ratio because you're only 13 feet under your maximum.
Actually, what I'm doing is we're stepping up, and it's actually a raised concrete slab there, so it's actually a poured concrete walkway that it's going up, and that whole thing is just concrete box. And he has wines that he needs to store and.
Looking for, okay.
So.
Because I don't know, if a week or so ago, there was another home that had a similar spot. They were running their circular staircase down to their 5'6", or 5'11". I'm just kind of saying, in construction.
He has cases and cases of wine that he needs to store, and he feels that will be a natural cooling place, without having air conditioning or anything.
And you'll make sure that it doesn't grow to 6 foot or 6'8"?
I'll do my best.
Okay.
I'll do my best. As long as I'm around, I'll make sure.
A few cases of wine will change your mind.
Everything looks.
Mr. Aliano, how dare you?
Just a joke.
Well, do we have any more questions for the designer?
I had a few questions. This is basically to be used around the windows, right?
That's what we're proposing.
And then these preformed, you call them preformed foam sections, are those going to be the same as this?
Yes. Well, the ones that have, for example, on north elevation, right above the entry door, you mean? Those will be more, I don't think they can make it out of foam. I think they'll be more of plaster and stone finish. I don't think so. I don't think they can find this, especially with that detail. So
he would be okay if we said that we don't agree with that. He would with the concrete.
He knows it's coming, so he's been told many times.
All right. Thank you.
We'll give you some muscle.
I think that's all the questions we have for the designer. Thank you for a wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So with that, we'll close the public session, since there's no other speakers in the audience and there's no cards. So, Mr. Yu, do you want to start on this one?
Sure, start on this one. Thanks for the presentation. looks like you had a lot of fun with the French provincial style. I think the site is just amazing with the view and everything. I think you said that the cut and fill was pretty even, and so I think that's a good thing. The design of the place is what it is, and I think it's articulated well, and, there's a lot of things in there. I mean, the only couple things that I have is I'd like to see the stone be used instead of the foam. A little more articulation maybe on the west side, because it is pretty apparent as you go around the house. It's kind of glaring. Maybe utilize a little more of, even as simple as maybe that detail where the elevator tower is or something, little things like that.
People at the table.
Let's see. I think that's about it. And I've seen a couple of your projects now, and I think I appreciate the elevations and things that you bring in, sort of the clarity of them. And I think we talked about a little bit on the last project where maybe that hindered the project a little bit, and so I think it's a good example of that. Besides that, I'm okay with the project and approving it, as is, with those small conditions, I guess, if everyone agrees to.
Thank you, Mr. Yu. Mr. Ellis?
When I looked at the drawing, and I didn't really look at the site, I pictured about a quarter-mile long lane with a lot of poplar trees and this beautiful French villa. And then I went and visited the site, and you've done very nice work, Al. It's going to be wasted on the community because no one's going to see it. It's so tucked back in that property. I mean, I understand that your client, this is what they want, and that's their right. I would have hoped from the description that you had of him and his interest in green air conditioning and different things, would have considered a home that would build into the hillside, built to that lot, because it's a pretty amazing piece of property. That not being where it is, I would certainly support the changes that staff has mentioned. I am crazy about those 5'9" spaces, and just especially when you're built within 13 feet of the maximum you can acquire. You couldn't build a bigger house in this lot. You're at the maximum you could get. You're 13 feet from it, right? And it may be mixed in there someplace. Anyway. But the elevator, I don't know if the elevator counts as living space. Is that I don't know either. Yeah. Right, are you? All right. At any rate, the foam would be a no-go for me also, and I would support the staff recommendations, at least so until I reserve myself till I hear the pros at the other end of the table. But nice job. You should be in France building houses like this.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis. Mr. Aliano?
Thank you. Well, I have to say you outdid yourself. I mean, I think you kind of a very impressive presentation. I know you're going to pull it off. The main thing that I would like to suggest, given the great amount of detail that you have on this, is that you try to convince the client to use precast concrete. Because I don't feel very strongly about this stuff, and
Well, there is a good way to convince the client to use precast concrete.
There is?
Well, there is.
There is?
It's called a condition.
It will be a condition. But that's what I would like to suggest that we do, because I think if you don't do that, it's going to be hard to make it very convincing. The other thing is the plaster. You call it smooth plaster, but there's many kinds, and I would suggest that we do some kind of a steel trowel so you really get a smooth plaster, and it will feel much better in contrast with the precast. I don't know. Given the situation, I would say I will support this project, but it's not what I would normally support. But I know that you will pull it off.
Thank you, Mr. Aliano. Mr. Insua?
First I want to say that anyone who knows your work knows that you really shine on contemporary and light structures, whether they be residences, your own home, or commercial structures, and to see that you can pull off French Provincial circa 1687 or whatever it is, you should be commended, because you got it right on. The shame of it is that no one really will see it.
Yeah.
And the shame of it is that I think a house like this, in my opinion, needs a little bit of elbow room, so that, as you're saying, you got that walkway down the lane with the row of trees, and then opening up to a wonderful fountain, and then the house and the landscape and the horses and it's a shame.
The carriage.
Yeah, but this house is absolutely majestic. It's gorgeous. And it's a shame that in its context, it's a little fighting a little bit. But down, proportioned, it's gorgeous. And I want to bring out something in a second, which we always wrestled with respect to the site, that I think you did very well. So it's a shame that this kind of architecture isn't something you drive by and say, goodness, look at that, and because people would come and see a great designed house. Here, only the immediate neighbors and guests will see it. It deserves to be like on Kenneth and up in the northwest Glendale. Just boom, there it is. So anyway, having done that, next time a client wants you on those kind of sites, you can point to this or to say, I pulled it off once. If we turn to, I just wanted to pick this up because the drawing is perfect. If you turn to sheet A 3.2, where the column is supposed to be off center, in fact, it's perfect where it is, because on the right of the drawing, that wall goes back on a skew, it goes back on an angle. So it actually is depicted properly. If you look at the drawing A 2.1, you'll see what I mean, that it is in center, it's just that the angle is giving you a skewed view of it. And then in closing, I think if we look at sheet A 3.2 again, and focus on the site, I think this is a good example of how you take site walls and work them up to the site. A lot of people, just put one big retaining wall, and how your walls work up the site, you landscape and stuff, and I think that's done well. Again, it's just a shame that this project won't be more visible for people to really appreciate. We have a lot of big homes in this city that are being built. They're just big, in my opinion, not big and well designed, and hit those little sensitive points that are important. So you did a great job in that sense.
Thank you, Mr. Insula. I agree with the board. I think a lot of energy has gone into this building, and you could just see from the renderings and from the plans and from the elevations, and to integrate those two-story windows and have them work well with one another and have all those intricate details work in there is a lot of energy. So this is a good example of a large home that is done right. So we have a lot of design input that has gone into it to try to make it as true to its style, even though the style perhaps doesn't really belong in the immediate area. And so it's really true to itself as opposed to true to its context. So if it were in an open area, it would really pop out. However, it isn't, and it is really buried behind the mountain and a building and the hillside. And so this is kind of a little oasis that he's creating, but at least it's an oasis that has the right design attributes. So I support the project as well. So does someone want to...
May I ask one quick question? In your research and the color, and in research on colors, are these traditionally...
They're not that traditional.
They're not. We see a lot of houses with this tan...
A lot lighter, white,
tan color.
Tan colors. This is more of earth tone.
Earth tone, yeah.
Earth.
Was anything else considered? I mean,
we've tried many different colors. These are the colors that
you've settled. Yeah.
The lake's kind of bluish. They use a lot of blue.
Yeah. It's a real slate, or is that a manufactured project? No, it's a real slate. Thank you.
Make a motion to approve the project with the conditions as listed.
I think you maybe mentioned a few other conditions in your conversation.
Shall we hear?
Ones that I heard were for steel troweled plaster rather than smooth plaster, and rather you may have a few others that you might have.
I actually heard the same comment you just stated, and also to reiterate the use of precast or concrete window seals, frames, and borders.
How about the corners?
And the coins, correct?
Columns, anything that looks concrete.
And including the columns.
You know, the panels.
Columns and panels.
All the detail.
Architectural detail.
Yeah.
Right. No
And
problem.
also from Mr. Yu, articulate the west elevation more.
Right.
And then I think we had a comment about the window material, but I didn't hear the board mention anything like that. I think we were recommending the use of wood windows rather than fiberglass.
Right.
But if it pleases the board that fiberglass is acceptable, we'll remove that condition.
Well, let me ask, if it's going to be painted, correct? I mean, to be painted, you weren't thinking of anything.
Personally, I think fiberglass in that area, a lot of moisture, a lot of vegetation, I think fiberglass would work better. Wood may need a lot of maintenance later on, but I think with fiberglass, you're going to have a consistent look, lasting look, that it's going to stay the same as, but wood, you need to maintain it yearly or every 2 years, so that's what I would.
Okay, but it'll be fiberglass with wood on the interior, but that's usually how those come.
Yeah.
The wood window with a fiberglass
Right.
exterior. So if you're not going to stain the wood window, and it's going to be painted wood, I think for maintenance reasons, the fiberglass is probably a better choice, because it would look just like painted wood, Right. So the finish actually will look better because it's smoother. Plus you get the profile of the wood on the inside, which is nice. I'm okay with that. I think the board is okay.
Do we want to entertain a motion?
I make a motion with the conditions and comments that we've made.
And then there is,
That was Mr.
Oh, you, right, forgive me.
You already made a motion.
You made it.
I thought I did, but I don't know.
Who's on first?
Chair was looking at me going, come on, your turn.
Mr. Yu has already made a motion, and we have a second by Mr.
and
Sewell.
if, before you vote, perhaps you'd like us to read the two sentences,
We would
record
love
of
to hear
decision.
those two sentences.
Change that.
As conditioned, the project appears to be consistent with the single-family neighborhood analysis and guidelines in its site planning, design, massing, and scale. While the project site is located in the hillside area of the city, the hillside design guidelines do not appear to be entirely applicable since the proposed house will be located in an area of the lot that is relatively flat.
I think that summed it up quite well.
So there was a motion by Mr. Yu and a second by Mr. Insua. This will be roll call. Mr. Galeano?
Yes.
Mr. Yu?
Yes.
Mr. Ellis?
Yes.
Mr. Insua?
Yes.
And Chairman Simonia?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Well, that was our last case.
Oh, we probably have minutes. You got to sit down.
After 6 hours?
They have something else to torture us with. Oh, no. Come on, hang around, Mr. Malikian. We'd like to see you some more.
You need this?
Good thing that banner down.
And so we have the approval of minutes. That's the next item on the agenda.
Actually, the minutes from June the 12th are being continued to
Okay.
our next meeting date.
Very good. Well, that eliminates that item, and the next one is staff and board business and discussions. Anything that we would like to discuss, that any board member or staff have any discussion items? No?
There will actually be an orientation discussion at your next meeting date, which would be the second week in July. You will be starting at the same time. We will be having a shorter agenda in this
I
case.
see. How many items are on that agenda?
I believe one, if I'm not mistaken.
Two.
All right,
So
two
the
items are
idea
on the
is-
agenda, and normally we limit the Design Review Board meetings to 4 items, and so you'll have 2 short items, and then you'll have your orientation session.
So is that a norm now? 4 items is the max?
4 items, we would prefer not to go ahead and schedule more than 4 items on an agenda.
There is,
Obviously,
We would too.
it's 9:15 right now, so.
Let us know if there's a
there is an
right of
There is an upcoming agenda that, because we do have your next meeting will have only the 2 items, and the orientation study session. The following agenda for Board 2 will have similarly 2 items.
Correct.
And the orientation study session. Then your meeting after that looks like it has 5 items. We added a very short one after the limit of 4. So we do try to make sure that we can, get out at a reasonable hour, but we also want to be mindful of our applicants' needs.
What are we covering in the orientation? What is it?
Chair Simonian, would you like to take a stab at what we'll be covering?
Very shortly, there's been a lot of changes, as we all know, that have been implemented by City Council. And so this is, the intention of this meeting is for our board, Design Review Board 1, to really go through those issues as to what the changes have been, what the new process is like, and to maybe go in a little more detail as to the how we want to record and process the decision letters and so forth. And so we think it's going to be an hour and a half or a 2-hour meeting. So we figured we would do it right after a short agenda.
So it's a procedural kind of thing?
Yes, and the changes really of what has happened and what is expected and so forth.
Will there be any handouts with that we might see ahead of time? So if we have questions, we
I
can...
actually went, I went to the website the other day, City of Glendale website, and I think under planning, there's a thing that you can hit, and then it takes you to it where you see the new ordinance and stuff. So
I have a copy of the new ordinance, but I'm just wondering if there's something that points or anything, or it'll be a surprise?
If we were going to provide handouts, we would
send
include
it
that in the
Thank you.
packet.
Thank you.
We would also, what would help us is to have this as a dialogue rather than a presentation, so to get your feedback so that we can all figure out how to best work together moving forward.
Do you think it's a good idea to include that agenda that we were working off of the other day, just to give everyone an idea as to what the big discussion items are? That way you get...
Thank you. That'd be a great idea.
Yeah, we will absolutely finalize the agenda and include that item in the packet. If there are any additional handouts, we'll provide them as well.
One last quick question. There is a rumor of an assessment panel. Would that fall on one of those 2 dates?
No, we are hoping to schedule an alternative assessment panel for August the 7th. And so this would be on a day that the Board 1 is actually convening, and that alternative assessment panel would require 3 members from Board 1 and 2 members from Board 2. So this would be on August the 7th, where we anticipate.
Board 2.
It was a Board 2 decision.
What is it with those folks?
Or the appellants in this case for those.
Just a quick question regarding the 50% rule of, as it gets classified as a renovation or new. Can there be a discussion about an explanation that clarifies exactly how that's calculated? And because that's a discussion that I had with Roger, and I think I talked to a couple other people, but there was no clear definition of how it was defined that they gave me. So I was just wondering if that's something that we could discuss.
I'd be more than happy to go ahead and provide a handout. It's actually specified in our zoning code.
Right, it's on there, but
it
doesn't make. Oh, I'll save it for later. We can talk
all right.
about it.
No, we'd be more than happy to go ahead and discuss.
If this is a topic of interest to you, you probably want to know that there is discussion of possibly changing that rule in a group of zoning code amendments that we've taken to the City Council for initiation, and we will be doing some
maybe
outreach to the public and planning commission hearings on possible changes to that rule.
Couple meetings.
Okay.
I move we adjourn.
And at
Second.
8:50
Third.
for adjourn?
Third.
Unanimous.
Adjourn.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.